Hi! Many musicians out there get a bit frustrated because maybe they've come up with a great melody that they'd like to work with, but they're not entirely sure how to get chords to fit the melody. So here's a melody. It doesn't matter if it's a melody in a style that you would normally work in or not, because the principles are just the same. So here's my little 4-bar melody. It's not a melody that's going to set the Thames on fire, but it will serve a purpose that you might find helpful. Now, down here, I've got some chords. We're in the key of C major, so what you do is you take every note of the scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then you make up chords. So you do that by using the first, the third, and the fifth note. In other words, C is the first note, so D will be number 2, so E is number 3, F will be number 4, G is number 5. So you use 1, 3, 5. So above C, that gives you C, E and G. Above D, it gives you D, F, A. Above E, it gives you E, G, B. Above F, it gives you F, A, C. Above G, it gives you G, B, D. Above A, it gives you A, C, E. And above B, it gives you B, D, F. And we sometimes refer to these as these chords: C, D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor, B diminished. Don't worry too much about the major and the minor and the diminished for the time being, but those are the chords it gives us. Or some people prefer to do it this way. They use these Roman numerals to call this chord 1, chord 2, chord 3, chord 4, chord 5, chord 6, and chord 7. And basically, if you want a chord to fit your melody, you look at the first note and you think, well, the first note's E. Which of these chords has got E in it? Well, chord 1 has got E in it, hasn't it? So that would fit. Chord 6 has got an E in it. And chord 3 has got an E in it. So basically, if I take this E, I could put chord 1 with it. That sounds okay because it's got an E in it. I could put chord 3 with it. That sounds okay because it's got an E in it. I could take chord 6. Sounds okay? That's got an E in it. Or to put that another way, a chord of C, a chord of E minor, or a chord of A minor. But if I tried to take chord 7 or B dim and put that with it, it doesn't sound very good because there's a bit of a clash. So you'll find for any note in the melody, there will always be 3 chords that fit with it. So then you could kind of experiment with those 3 chords and think, well, which one do I prefer to use? So for example, because it's the first note of the tune, you might decide you're going to start with chord 1 or a chord of C, because that would fit quite nicely, wouldn't it? Now, if I put that down, I'm then going to move on to C. Now C is also in a chord of C or chord 1, so I could stick with that chord of C, or I could move to a different chord that's got C in it. So that, well, 1 is one possibility, but chord 4 or chord of F has got C in it. Chord 7 has, chord 6 rather, has got a C in it, or a chord of A minor. So I could go from C to A minor, or I could go from C to F major, or I could go from C and stay on C. If you want it to be a little bit gentle, you don't want the chords to change very much, you could just stick where you are. So I'll do that for now. Let's go on to the next one. Here we've got a D. Sometimes you can just take each single note. Sometimes you can put some notes together. So when I look at this second bar, I think, well, D, B, G spells out a G chord, doesn't it? So there's a G chord or a chord 5. So maybe I could put a G chord over the whole of that bar because it just happens to fit all of those notes. Well, that's great, isn't it? So let's have a G there or a chord 5. You don't have to do that. You could have one chord for the D and one for the B and one for the G, but it might just make it sound a little bit kind of jolting to be changing the chords. When you've got 3 notes that spell out a chord, well, you might as well just go for it, mightn't you? Going on to the next note, well, this isn't going to fit a chord of G, so we probably need to change. We're also discovering that we've got 1 chord in the first bar, 1 chord in the second bar, so maybe that's kind of roughly how it's going to work. We'll have to see. A could fit with chord 4, the F chord. It could be something to do with chord 2, the D minor chord, or it could be something to do with chord 6, the A minor chord. So if it's the F chord or chord 4, it's that. If it's chord 6 or A minor, it's that. If it's chord 2 or D minor, it's that. So it could be any of those things. Well, let's, for the sake of argument, go with a D minor chord, which is chord 2. Then I may decide I want to carry on with that because it fits the D, but the trouble is it doesn't fit the B, so I'm going to have to change, aren't I? I may even think, well, is there a chord that's got D and B in it? And actually you can see D and B fitting in a chord 5 there, can't you? It also fits in a chord 7, though I have to say that usually chord 7 doesn't sound quite so good because it is a diminished chord. It sounds a little bit odd. So you might want to avoid chord 7 most of the time. So how about we go for a chord 5 or for a G chord? And then, because this is the last note of the shortest melody in history, well, it's a C and it fits with a C chord or a chord 1, so that would kind of bring us home. So if we run with those chords, it's going to sound like this. So we're going to have a C chord and a G chord and a D minor chord and a G chord and a C chord, or 1, 5, 2, 5, 1. And by the time I've got something interesting going in the accompaniment using those things, it could be quite good. So there we are. How to have a melody that you might have composed or improvised, how to find chords that fit with it. So you could have hours of fun with that. Good luck.